In this lecture, we're going to talk about confidence and how important that is for excellent performance. We'll talk about what confidence is, where it comes from, how it affects performance, and how you can actually improve confidence. So confidence is one of those things that everybody just sort of knows is important for sport performance. You hear it talked about by outstanding performers, Olympic and elite athletes all the time. When describing how they achieved great things, they'll often say that they felt very confident. When people are asked about their best performances, they often describe a high level of confidence was part of what got them there. When you ask people how they achieved dreams that took a long time to achieve, one of the things they'll often cite is they had confidence all the way that they could ultimately achieve that goal. So confidence is widely known as one of the most important psychological factors for excellent performance. Confidence has been defined a lot of different ways, and we'll talk about different kinds of confidence today, but in general, all the definitions include the same thing. It's a belief, and it's a special kind of belief about abilities and expectations of success. Confidence has lots of dimensions. One of the ways it has dimensions, it at times is both stable over time, or what we think of as trait-like. It's kind of a quality that people have of being confident or not confident. But we also know that it's fragile and changeable, that confidence can grow, confidence can be shattered, confidence can be high or low at any single given point in time. I like to think of it kind of like the figure on the slide here demonstrates that your trait-like confidence is kind of like the flat line in the middle on this graph. That's your sort of your set point around which your state-like confidence will grow or shrink, and there's probably bounds to that. So for people who are, in general, fairly confident people, kind of a trait-like characteristic of being confident, they generally have higher confidence overall, but even their confidence goes up or down, but it probably has boundaries around it. Their low confidence isn't all that low. So we think about confidence as being both consistent and stable and changeable in the moment or over time. Now, there's a very closely related concept in psychology. You've probably heard of Bandura's social cognitive theory. Albert Bandura is a famous psychologist, and his theory has two important cognitive constructs in it: self-efficacy, or a belief in one's ability to perform a task, and outcome expectancies, which is the belief that if I perform this task, I will get certain outcomes. It's kind of an if-then proposition. I think of the confidence that we talk about in sports as really a combination of both the self-efficacy and the outcome expectancy that come together to form confidence. The phrase at the bottom, "I believe that I have what it takes to win," combines both the self-efficacy in one's abilities and the outcome expectancy that if I do it, I'll be successful. I think that's what really characterizes confidence. Now, confidence has lots of different dimensions. When we talk about confidence, it's one of those things where we often sort of think we know what we're talking about, but there's all different kinds of confidence, and we need to be sure that we know exactly what we're talking about or what we mean when we say confidence. One of the ways confidence can be sort of looked at dimensionally is different layers of confidence. Now, self-confidence is often what we mean when we say confidence colloquially. We're talking about self-confidence, which is really about my confidence in me, my abilities to do certain things myself and to get certain outcomes for me. But there can be lots of other dimensions or layers to that. So if you think about things like an athlete who maybe is part of a sports team or a sports organization, let's take somebody perhaps who plays in the NFL for, say, the New England Patriots. Now, they may have self-confidence. They're really confident in their own abilities as an athlete. But then are they confident in their role? Do they understand what their job is on the team and the role they're expected to play? And are they confident they can play that role? Do they have confidence in their partners, their cohorts, their teammates? So, for example, on a football team, if you're an offensive lineman, do you have confidence in your offensive line as a unit? That would be like your partners or your cohort. The offensive lineman might have confidence in their offensive line unit, but then what about their confidence in the offensive unit as a whole? That also involves the quarterback, the running backs, the receivers, in addition to the offensive line unit. That's another layer of confidence. Then there's a layer they have confidence in their team as a whole. Maybe they have high confidence in their offensive line unit, pretty high confidence in their offensive unit, but they have very little confidence in their defensive unit or special teams. So they may have, as a team, lower confidence. Layered on top of that might be things about the coaching or the coaching staff. Again, going back to a football analogy, they may have an offensive line coach, an offensive coordinator on top of that, a head coach on top of that, so they have confidence at all levels of coaching. And then maybe there's the organizational confidence. Do you have confidence in your whole organization to create a culture and make the right personnel moves and do the right things to be a successful team as a whole over time? So there's lots of different layers to confidence is one way we can think about it. We also know that confidence can vary by task or skill. So let's say you're a basketball player. As a basketball player, you may be generally pretty confident as a player. You may be really confident in your offensive abilities. Maybe you're a great scorer, but you're not so confident in your defensive abilities. Maybe you're really confident at your three-point shooting, but not so much your free throw shooting. So there can be lots of different subtasks to any single performance that you could vary in your confidence level for that particular task. Very few people have a high level of confidence across all the subtasks of a given set of skills that may be required for a performance. We know that confidence level can vary by context. So you may have high confidence that you can do this in practice. You may have so-so confidence you can do it in a game, but you have very little confidence that under high pressure or against the toughest opponents, you could be successful. So confidence can vary by the context in which you're asked to perform. Confidence can vary by performance versus outcome. This is sometimes called achievement standard versus winning or losing. So I, for example, as a golfer, I'm pretty confident that I can play pretty well, but I have very little confidence that even if I play my very best, I could compete with the best players in the world. So I may be able to reach the standards I have for myself, but that standard won't necessarily translate into wins, as an example. So there's different kinds of dimensions and layers to confidence, and it's important to note that all of these different levels can be very helpful. So it's important to attend to the different layers of confidence when you're assessing for and trying to build confidence. It's not always just about self-confidence or self-confidence in practice, but it's about across context, across layers, across all these different dimensions. This figure tries to highlight some of the various different kinds of confidence and how important they are. At the top of the figure, you see performance self-confidence. That's the kind of confidence about that I have the skills and abilities to perform in the competitive context and do what needs to be done to be successful. Outcome self-confidence at the bottom is the kind of outcome expectancy from Bandura's model that if I do what I'm capable of, I will get the outcomes that I want. That's really kind of an outcome expectancy. The performance self-confidence is more like Bandura's self-efficacy. I have the skills and abilities to do what's necessary. There's also types of physical self-confidence, things like I am confident that I can execute what's necessary. I have the ability to learn and develop things, and I have the fitness, and physical attributes necessary to perform the various skills. Those are different kinds of physical self-confidence. And then you might also have the self-regulatory, or what we might think of as kind of the mental toughness or the mental self-confidence. The self-confidence that I can make good decisions and I can attend to the right things. That's what we call cognitive management. I have the ability to regulate my emotions and my arousal and my intensity to be able to meet the needs of performance. And I'm confident in my resiliency, that I can bounce back from adversity or deal with challenges that might happen. In order for an athlete to kind of be optimally confident, they really need to be high and work on building confidence in all of these different areas. So how do we know that, or how does confidence affect performance? Well, through a lot of different ways. We know that confident athletes tend to be more persistent, and they put forth more effort. And both of things are quite important for excellent performance. We know that confidence affects, over the long run, participation in a sport. So to some degree, high confidence is selected for as we get to higher and higher levels of a sport, because people who are lower confident have just dropped out of the sport or moved on to other things where they maybe feel more confidence. So to some extent, high confidence is selected for at elite levels. We know that confident athletes tend to think differently. They tend to make more productive attributions. When things go poorly, they're more likely to say, gosh, there's something I've done that contributed to that, and I could change my approach to perhaps get better outcomes. A less productive attribution would be to say something like, well, I'm just not lucky today, or the refs are against me, and therefore I'm not going to change anything to help my performance. Those are not productive attributions. We know that confident athletes tend to set more challenging goals and have higher standards for their performance. And as you have higher standards, that leads to better performance over time. And we know that confident athletes tend to focus better. And probably that's mostly driven by the fact that they don't have the distractions of self-doubt. For less confident athletes that have lots of thoughts of self-doubt, those can be quite distracting and lead to poor decisions or loss of concentration. We also know that confidence is negatively correlated with anxiety, and too much anxiety leads to poor performance. So to the extent that one can build confidence, anxiety tends to reduce as a natural consequence of that. I want to share with you a bit about a really interesting qualitative study of confidence published recently. Hayes et al. Did a study where they interviewed 14 elite-level athletes using interviews in what we call a qualitative study. In a qualitative study, we're not using quantitative measures like scores on a self-report questionnaire or other kinds of measurements we might take. We're looking at the actual raw data of what people say in conversation, in interviews, and trying to analyze that for themes or insights. And so this was a nice example of a qualitative study. In this study, these 14 interviews, I want to also mention with semi-structured interviews, what we mean by that is that's an interview where there's a general structure to it. There's common questions will be asked of everybody, but the interviewer is allowed to kind of ask extra questions, follow-up questions to probe deeper certain things or follow up on things that might be interesting. That's what we mean by semi-structured. So there's a rough structure to it, some common questions, but there's also the freedom of the interviewer to go off script, if we were. They found in their study that confidence was related to three important aspects of performance. This came out in many of the interviews. First of all, confidence affected thinking or cognitions. It helped people maintain a task focus and not get distracted. People with higher confidence also reported a sense of leading to positive affect or emotion. They felt better when their confidence was high. They felt a sense of enjoyment, of feeling more relaxed that helped them perform their best. And lastly, they reported that high confidence led to more effective behaviors, things like having positive body language in the sport and being really committed, more easily committed to decisions they made and making sure those were the right decisions to move forward. So in these 14 interviews, those were the three main factors that they thought confidence led to that contributed to better performance. They also talked about things that undermine performance, and the interviews identified a number of common things that seem to undermine confidence. Things like poor performance. It's hard to maintain confidence when your performance has been bad. Injury or illness that might limit one's physical abilities to do what they've always been able to do. Poor preparation. Perhaps preparation gets interfered with by injury or other sorts of travel or other sorts of things. That preparation can lower confidence. Sometimes coaching undermines confidence. Either changes in coaching or coaches who don't have a very positive style that builds confidence can undermine confidence. And lastly, they mentioned that the context, the pressure or expectations can sometimes overwhelm confidence. Sometimes folks will report that I felt pretty confident until I got there on the big stage, and then it was hard to maintain it because the pressure and the expectations kind of got to me. So this was a really interesting study that highlighted some of the ways that confidence does influence performance. So where does confidence come from and what can we do about it? And I think on this slide, the sources of confidence are kind of ranked from best to worst at the bottom. So at the top is the most important. The best source of confidence is having done it before, performance success in the past. The idea that I can do it because I've done it before is often the best, most credible, most strongest source of self-confidence. Below that is the practice repetitions. I can do it because I've practiced it thousands of times. So maybe I haven't yet done it in the competitive arena, but I know I can do it because I've prepared well to do it. That's another strong source of confidence. Modeling is another source of confidence. I can do it because I've seen other people do it. I can do it because she did it and I'm just like her. That's an example of confidence. You often see this playing out in, say, college athletics, where maybe freshmen are drawing their confidence from looking at seniors who've achieved goals that are similar to theirs, and they can see themselves following that same path and having a similar set of abilities. So modeling is an important source of confidence. Praise and persuasion, especially from credible others. So, for example, if you have a coach that has a lot of credibility, they've trained champions before, and they're saying that you have the ability to do it, that's a strong sense of confidence. I can do it because my coach says I can. Some other sources are things like visualization. The quote here on the slide, if I can see it and believe it, then I can achieve it. Often that's where confidence starts as a foundation, is the ability to dream and to see what might be possible, and then working towards that to build confidence through practice, through repetition, through modeling, and ultimately through competition. But it often starts with visualization. I can do it because I've seen myself do it. And lastly is self-talk and affirmation, telling yourself things that build confidence. I can do it because I tell myself I can. Now, this is an important source of confidence, and many athletes undermine their confidence with their self-talk. But I put this at the bottom of the slide because, as you might guess, affirmation alone is a source of pretty weak self-confidence. I could tell myself over and over again that I can fly an airplane, but if I've never practiced it, I've never seen other people do it, I've never been taught how to do it and told by coaches I can do it, that's probably pretty fake confidence that's going to be pretty fragile and fall apart immediately once I'm asked to fly the plane. So self-talk and affirmation are useful, but are kind of really at the bottom of the rung of really credible, strong sources of confidence. So in summary, confidence is certainly an important psychological factor, perhaps one of the most important psychological factors in human performance. But it's more than just self-confidence and abilities. There's lots of layers and dimensions of confidence, and we have to think sort of beyond simple self-confidence to look for all the different ways confidence may be able to help us or hurt us in our performance. And attending to those different kinds of confidence can create optimal levels of confidence. We want people to be highly confident, but we want that confidence to be spread across many dimensions and levels. We want to have lots of credibility. There's a lot of reason to be confident, not just simply affirmation or something. And we know that because confidence comes from many sources, it can be changed over time and it can be developed. And we'll be talking about other ways that you might be able to build confidence throughout the course.